Blog Talk Radio. Has anyone ever told you you dream too big? Blog Talk Radio. Has anyone ever told you you dream too big, that you have too many ideas, that you need to be realistic? What if there was a career and lifestyle that you could completely design yourself that enables you to do what makes your heart truly sing and helps millions of people benefit from what you have to offer? One that provided you with all the money you need to thrive, not just survive. That is the life of an enlightened entrepreneur. Welcome to the Aha Moments radio show, dedicated to the inspiration, education, and celebration of enlightened entrepreneurs worldwide, with your host, Mariana Cooper, founder of Aha Moments Inc. and AhaMomentsInc.com. Her motto, oh yes, you can have what you want, and you deserve it too. Join us for the next hour and learn to trust your aha moments to lead the way to a passionate and purposeful life. And now here's your host, Mari.
Hello there, and welcome to the Aha Moments radio show for the inspiration, education, and celebration of enlightened entrepreneurs and light workers worldwide. I'm Mari, and happy Tuesday. Today we have an extremely special show. It is our annual Aha Energetic State of the Union address. And actually one of my friends said the State of the World address. And we are being joined by Carroll, who is the world-renowned channel of Kryon. I'm so excited because we do this now. This is becoming an annual event, and we had tried to do it for January, but Lee was, of course, on the road. So February, as far as I'm concerned, there's no time anyway. We're going to talk about that. So it's a really good time now that we've kind of gotten a little bit further into the new year, the new energy, to have Lee join us and kind of give us a lay of the land. And we're going to go full out tonight. We're going to talk about all the stuff going on with the energy, with the Sandy Hook thing, with the hurricanes, with all the stuff. You guys have been sending questions. I wanted to let you know we will be taking questions tonight. So, excuse me, the number to call is 347-215-9485. So it's 347-215-9485. And I just want to say, also on Facebook tonight, on my Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Aha Moments Inc. You can post your questions there. We'll be taking a look at those as well. And then several of you have already emailed and posted questions, so we have them already here. So I've asked not to email questions at this point because I'm not going to be able to switch back and forth from so many screens, but we will try to look at the Facebook ones if they come in, and then of course you can call in. And of course that's first come, first serve. The other thing I will say is if you do ask a question on the phone and you're asking us live, these are not going to be like predictive, what should I do? What's my life purpose? What's my, is my kid going to make it into college kind of questions? We're really looking for questions around, the energy, current events, things that, trends and that type of thing, as opposed to personal predictions. We're not going to be doing that tonight, okay? So I just wanted to be clear. And we have, a lot of folks calling in. So if you can keep it very succinct and straightforward and brief as far as your questions, I'd really, really appreciate that so we don't overload Lee. So I'm not going to do much other housekeeping other than that because I want to give Lee and I as much time as possible to get every little bit of what's going on in this world out. So hi, Lee. How are you? I'm so happy to have you here tonight.
I'm great. Thank you very, very much for letting me back here. Every once in a while you'll hear me cough.
Okay.
And that's because I caught a little bit of a cold in Florida. I know somebody had to go down there. And
so with you.
Yeah. And so I have no cough suppressant thing on my telephone, so you'll hear me do that occasionally. But Yeah, I am really, really pleased to be here. You're right. We have lots of things to discuss, and I'm ready.
Okay. Well, last time we chatted, I think was on our last telesummit in May. I think that was April of last year. And everything was, are we going to blow up? Are we going to blow up? Are we going to die? Are we going to die? So we're all still here. And so now what? Like,
well, I mean, let's review. First of all, I can't believe that I've spent as much energy as I have the last 3 years telling people we're not blowing up, and but it all ties in. It's interesting, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. It all ties into what really is taking place. We had to go through this because it although it had some, what I would call some pretty ridiculous predictions based upon some pretty bad television, but and this is what we discussed. But really, this is a decision point. It always was, and as we discussed the last time, we cannot trivialize at all this demarcation point. This precession of the equinoxes, this 26,000-year event that we're having. It's real, and the stuff we went through and are going through is also real. So what we did in the last 3 years is I was trying to quench the rumors that it was the predictions were saying it was all over. There was no transition ahead. It was just like goodbye, and there was just so many people buying into this, and it's not their fault. It's that we're a product of what we're told. And you're watching the television, and they're telling you that, and they're making a lot of money and getting you scared and all of these things. And they did a really good job of doing that. And, of course, a lot of people were very worried. And so my job for the last 3 years was to show them the logic of it, the spirituality of it, what was really taking place, and also kind of set the record straight of what the Mayans really did say and did not say. I had a Mayan elder thank me very much for that, by the way, when I was in Mexico. So we are now at this point where we can, I want to just say what you said, hey, we made it. So we are now at a point where, by the way, very few prophets said we would ever be. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to ask, what is next? And this is, I'd be happy to discuss these things with you as we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you want to know what just took place, and I just have to warn everybody that if you're talking about spiritual things, if you're talking about worldly, you're talking about Gaia, all of these things move extremely slow. But what we had was a predicted shift, a shift that was predicted probably now, we understand, over 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. And if I could just, take you back a little, and what I tell my people is that we have been consumed with what I will call modern predictions and prophecy. And what I mean by modern is that all the things that the most recent things have given us, from Scripture to Nostradamus to what some have said the indigenous, but they're only looking at a very small portion of the indigenous writing. And that is what we've been consumed with. And all along, what I would say under the hood, there has been a whole series of prophecies, time fractals, written up by science, written up by Greg Braden, one of my favorite authors, saying, look, guys, there's a lot more here. You can concentrate on the minutiae if you want to, but we're heading for something that, if we make it, is going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. And the if we make it was the whole point, because when I was born, the prophecy said we would not, and we had Scripture saying we would not. We had the religious stuff saying we have the rapture, we have the end of the world with all these things, and then something happened about 20 years ago. And this was the beginning of this 36-year window we talk about in the precession of the equinoxes. I'm not going to bore you with all the astronomy, and it's pure astronomy, but there is a wobble of the Earth that's 26,000 years long, and it ended on the December solstice, December 21, and started again. And this particular event has been foreseen by indigenous for thousands of years. I mean, you go back to the Aborigines, and they were scratching it in the rocks 10,000 years ago. They knew it. and I could go on. And this prophecy that they were talking about, should we make it, is about a complete and total recalibration of everything on the earth, very slowly, but especially human consciousness. Now, Kryon came in 1989, so 23 years ago, and the first thing that was said in the books was, human consciousness is changing. Your future is not going to be what you were told. That's why the little book was called The End Times. It was about what you were told about the end times. It wasn't about doom and gloom at all. It was a rethink on all of these things. And as we have slowly marched toward this, I'm realizing that all my work has been about now. And here we sit, and you may not be feeling it yet, or you might be, but there is something afoot here, and that is that we have passed the marker of an old energy, and it is starting to go away. And you would never know it by the news. You'd never know it by what's going on, because this crisis is like planting seeds. We are really, really impatient. And he says, like amateur farmers, we plant the seed and water it and run in the other room, and sun goes down, and we don't sleep at night, and we run outside in the morning to see what's happened. And of course, nothing. You can't see it grow, but you can if you wait long enough. And so we are planting these seeds, and they're going to come up. But this is seed planting time. We're not going to go from one day to another. From the darkness to the light. This doesn't work this way. It has almost perhaps a generation involved, because the children are going to be born and have been born in this energy. But this is new. This is different than anything we've ever seen. And you can get a word in edgewise here, but I want to, in a minute, depending on what you want to do next, I will tell you about the prophecy, the real prophecy.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it. Start off with a bang, the big bang.
It's something that was not being aware to me, and yet I had it in Kryon Book 8. I had it all along in Book 8, and I had involved a indigenous elder to write a little thing that I read it, of course. It was in my book, but I really didn't understand what the journey of the feathered serpent was all about. If I told you right now there are over 200 tribes, indigenous tribes representing North and South America, who are meeting annually now, who never even knew each other before because of something that's happening. Only for the last 2 years have they met. And they've been meeting in Mexico, and then now it's starting to go down into South America, because they discovered they all had the same prophecy. And this prophecy is the one that is the journey of the feathered serpent. It's called 3 or 4 things. It's the merging of the eagle and the condor. You can call it, because there's so many tribes involved, because there's so many different languages, they have named it various things that all means the same thing. And that is a rebalancing of wisdom on the planet. Going from North America, which is what we would call macho heavy, to South America, or the Northern Hemisphere, which is macho heavy, to the Southern Hemisphere, which is a softer energy. And it represents the softer hemispheres. The hemisphere of the condor has always represented the indigenous mother. And so what we are starting to see is, and what we have called the movement of the Kundalini of the planet, has also been prophesied. You can see it all over. A man named Perkins on the website, I don't know the exact name, but you can see his video if you go to my Kundalini tour page. It's on my scrapbook, and you really want to see what he has to say. And also, even Grundle McKelvey has talked about it when I was in Machu Picchu. They have a term called the awakening of the Puma. They're starting to feel it. I could go on and tell you about what's going on down there, where this thing is supposed to be centering, down in Lake Titicaca in Machu Picchu, is that there's a tremendous interest. Millions of people a year are starting to visit these places, and they're not doing any advertising past what they normally do. And yet they're having to restrict the number of people who come through the park now, all manner of things, because people are starting to feel it and want to go there and realize something is happening. A wisdom center, which has always been held in India and Tibet, according to the prophecies, is actually moving through the planet and is going to end up landing in South America in the area of Bolivia and Peru. Now, wipe away the 3D stuff for a minute. All this means metaphysically and metaphorically is that we are going to see a planet that is going to be softer, that decisions, business, politics, education, regular consciousness is going to start to see clearer. They're going to start to see a situation that we had always hoped for. Kryon has even gone so far as to say, now I can tell you, you're headed for a time when there will be no more war. And he said, because that funny little trite thing you hear and you've heard all your life, if women run the world, they would never send their sons to war, is that now Kryon has like redefined. He said, if humans run the world, there'll come a time when they'll never send their sons to war. He says it will be abhorrent. He said that is how much the consciousness of this planet is going to change. And people want to say, how long? We've waited so long. And Kryon says to all the old souls who are listening to this program, and that's probably why you're listening, is that this is the time that we have waited for. This is where the seeds are starting to be planted. Now you go to work. And we thought you were working before. You were working just to get through it. Now we're going to actually start planting the seeds. I believe this. I've been called all kinds of names, and besides being a channeler and being the devil. I mean, even those who believe in channeling and all saying, well, you're naive, you're the Pollyanna channel, you're this and you're that. And I waited a whole long time for this time because I've got about 20 channelers behind me and with me and talking about exactly the same thing. I've got science talking about the exact same thing. What is going on? Physicists are looking at what is going on. We've got a realignment of the magnetic grid. The solar system is starting to shift. It is endless, talking about the measurement of consciousness by the Global Consciousness Project in Princeton, and there's a lot involved here besides just a couple of people who are channeling and writing a few books and making noise.
Right. Well, it's interesting because one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I want to make this really relevant for people because we can talk in these really big strokes, but then people say, well, how do I apply this to my world? And so I want to get into that in a little bit. But I had a question about vortexes and how does this new energy enter into our existence? Is it that we have, like I've heard, because we're on the crystalline grid, and I've heard that there's certain areas of the planet where the energy is stronger and sort of like opened up more than others. Is that the case?
It's always been that way. There's never been a time when it hasn't been because there's a channel that was given. It's on the audio site, but not yet transcribed, called All About the Grids. I think I did it in Philadelphia. And then most of the channelings that had to do with the Kundalini tour that we just got through doing, 28 of them in South America talked about this, and one in specific is that the magnetic grid and the way it works, it's complicated. Interfaces with the crystalline grid, which is not physical, which is consciousness, and Gaia in particular, to create what is called nodes. And that is places that are higher and places that are lower in energy. And so whether it's a magnetic field that's higher or lower, or whether it's just the way things feel, or whether it's whatever you want to call it, energy, we know that there are. I mean, because you walk into places like Sedona and you feel it, or you're over in Europe and you're going to Lourdes and you want to know what's going on there, and some of these places like that. Sure, it's always been there. What is starting to happen is a realignment of the places.
Yes. Yes.
So some of them are going to get less, and some will get more, because again, it's difficult to me to give you 23 years of information just in a soundbite, but when Kryon came in as a magnetic master, you wanting to know what is this, a guy with magnets pasted on him or something? I mean, what does that mean? Comes to find out, it's all about how our grid, the magnetics, all of these things actually are shifting and changing. They have to, because it does affect human consciousness. Our consciousness at a multidimensional level is tuned into what Kryon says is the energy coming from the center of the galaxy, which is delivered to our sun, which is then delivered to our Earth in the way of the heliosphere. And there's a lot here that is physics beyond just woo-woo. And it even goes so far as to explain astrology and why movements of any planets at all would affect anything on the planet having to do with human consciousness, which is the science of astrology. There's more than that. If you get into this, and many, many times, and people roll their eyes when I start talking about these kinds of things, I just go right to the point, and I say, you tell me why they put on more policemen and firemen on the full moon, and I'll just sit back and listen to the answer. Because this is a movement of a body, our moon, and yet it affects what? It affects human consciousness. It brings out the crazies, and they know it. And so here they look at us and go, and astrology doesn't make any sense. Okay, fine, you make sense of what you're doing with the police and the fire department or full moon, and then then we'll have a nice discussion.
Right.
So these things are not that subtle, and we're facing them. We're facing them, and we're starting to face them right now. You mentioned Sandy Hook. It was a heartbreaker. I was in Hawaii getting ready for the Lemurian Choir, which was just it's going to be one of the biggest energetic events I ever participated in my life. And to have that happen at the same time, I just sat down and I asked Kryon, I said, what is the dichotomy of this? Here we are about to celebrate the marker of taking Earth into a softer place, and now we're mourning our kids in such a way. I said, where is the sense in this? And I'm not alone, because a lot of people looking at it. And the beautiful answer I got was, and if you could have something beautiful when something like this is going on, it says the old energy is leaving. It's going to die hard. And just like the full moon that brings out the crazies, you're going to have, this is going to be like years of full moon. And that is to say that if people are going to go over the edge, you're going to have them go now. And if societies are going to go over the edge, they're going to go now. If leaders are going to try to keep on keeping the old stuff, it's going to happen now. I was just in Venezuela. Do you know they cannot find their president?
No, it's not funny.
I mean, this is so old.
It's so old at the top.
You can't tell a whole country that he's on vacation while he's getting treatments in Cuba or died. And wow. This is so old. Kryon has channeled about the leader of South Korea and what he may be facing. If he goes the way of his dad into the old energy, he's doomed. The Kryon just said so. But he's got such a decision to make, and if he gets it, he could be one of the most respected leaders on Earth for decades. So these are the decisions just starting to be made. And they fall into this funny little area where people really don't know which way to go because it feels different. You're going to see it. You're going to see it in our own country, in the politics and how it works, and things that just don't work anymore at all. I was taking a look at. They're trying to analyze this last campaign we just went through, our presidential election. They decided some of the opposition to the president decided. Well, the rhetoric on television was just a little bit too hard, and they must have offended people. Well, yeah. I think anybody who's yelling at each other on the television is offending somebody.
Right.
Personally. Right. I think it's time for a whole softer approach, honesty and transparency, and it's going to take a while.
Right.
But you see who's doing it and see who's not, and the ones who are doing it are winning. So this is, I'm not getting political here. I'm just telling you to take a look at the consciousness of campaigning. Take a look at the consciousness of advertising. What is offensive to you and what is not? This whole thing about, in my opinion, these reality shows where you tune in to watch people yell at each other, that's doomed. People love that because of the drama, But you realize it was all set up. Every time I look at one of those things, I laugh because do you know what's on the other side of what you're not seeing? Is a whole wall of cameras and lights.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they're
And promotion deals and brand development for all the different little shoe lines
and
lines
yes.
and everything
So
else.
the whole thing is completely and totally put on. People don't act that way. We want to think they do just for fun, but they don't. These things are going to come into question. You're going to start seeing softer things. Not fast enough for me. But this is what this whole thing is about. Now,
okay, so I want to just stop you for 1 second because I just want to ask a quick question, and I'll let you go. I love I love where we're going anyway. But I just want to when we're talking about the Sandy Hook, and I'm just saying this because I'm hearing what my private clients are saying, my students and the folks calling to the radio show and the public at large. So the things with the guns, okay? So what you're saying, if I'm correct, is that the way that we had, the whole Hollywood version of Armageddon and the 2012 thing. And then we had the kind of the New Age metaphysical version where all of our colleagues and cohorts were saying it's going to be nirvana on the other side of the solstice and we're going to have this new energy and life is going to be, very terrific. And now what you're saying is that it's actually going to be like worse before it gets better in the sense of now kind of all of this dark, heavy energy is really rising now to the top. Like that's why we have like a shooting every 3 days now in schools and kids being held hostage and the 10-year-old being killed who sang at Obama's inauguration and all of these things that seem, is this like something new or is this just that they're reporting it more? I mean, it just seems like you can't go anywhere without really watching your back. I mean, before it was, if you're in New York City, you watch your back, or if you're in L.A., but, like, everywhere?
No, you look at it. Nobody's reporting anymore. The news is constantly combing dozens and dozens of sources looking for these things. So we're not suddenly seeing somebody report it. No, it's just exactly what it looks like. And it's what Kryon said it would be. It's actually was predicted. And it's not pretty. I wish I could tell you that it was going to be nirvana. It's not. It is not right now. If we could survive, and we have, all of these years of having energy just static and stay there, we call human nature, that is ugly, and survive it and walk through it, holding our light, we can walk through this too. This is something. Don't look at this activity as a foreteller of what's going to happen. This really is the dark energy, and I want to, if you don't mind, I would like to define dark energy. It's not an entity.
Yes.
Dark energy is the absence of light. It is a consciousness measurement. That's all it is. And for years and years and years, we have been out of balance. We have had the dark energy, if we want to say, which created the Hitlers and Napoleons and the Spanish Inquisitions and all of these things, people would you call just human place, where, first of all, that hasn't been happening for about 30 years, very, very slowly. Have we cleaned that up? We have, if you take a look at the state of the world with the unions that are starting to put together, in Europe and South America starting to understand countries should be allied, drop their borders, start trading differently. And the secret they're starting to understand is unification and not separation. Mm-hmm. Now, this flies in the face of everything we ever knew about history.
Yes.
So you know that there is a corner being turned. So if you just apply this to what I would call the dark and the light measurement, you're going to have more of these kinds of things. And I'm sorry to tell you that, but this is what Kryon has said is the reaction to us winning. If you see what I mean.
Yes.
It's the reaction to us winning. And that is that those of this consciousness on the planet is going to frail. It's going to yell and scream and holler and say, we're still here, we can't believe it. People ask, what's going to happen to the Illuminati? If you believe in the Illuminati, and I do, and did, and Kryon has talked about them, they're gone, basically. They've had to change their entire way of working because of the Internet. Kryon said someday there'd come this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He said there'd come a day when everybody could talk to everybody and there could be no secrets. It's called social networking, and it's here.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Israelis talking to Palestinians and Iranians, and they're all talking to each other around their leaders, and the leaders are mystified because the leaders want one thing and the young people want another.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. So you're going to see a lot of strife, indecision, the crazies becoming crazier, for a while. So yeah, we got to watch our backs, and I never thought I'd go on the air and say that. It's true. It's because we won. And so it may not feel like you won, but believe me, to have gone through this and still be standing at this point in time, you go find that in Scripture anywhere. It's just not there. You go find out what Nostradamus said. We're gone in that. You know, what are you going to say to Scriptures that never came about and they triangulate? And that means there's so many of them that said we wouldn't be here. Not only are we here, but we passed this important marker, and now we're going to have to do what we came for. We'll talk about that next.
So so this question just came up. Are we now creating from a completely blank slate with rules that we create or parameters that we create now from ourselves, or is there a predestination of once we got past that marker, if we got past that marker, there's a certain new
There's no actual predestination. Look at it this way. Let's put it into a situation that's metaphoric. Let us say that you have the invention for free energy. And let us say you've had it for a decade. And let us say that every time you bring up your hand and raise your hand or tell somebody about it, you're beat up by who? Who would you say? I'm asking you. If you had the secret to free energy and you started talking about it, who's gonna sequester your stuff? And the answer is power companies.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And anybody else who has a lot of money to be made in the way things exist now. So suddenly, let's say,
right.
not only do you have a bigger mouthpiece, but let's say that the power companies are not seen in a good light. Let's say that for whatever reason, they lose their clout. So what you have been doing for 10 years, you're not going to do anything different, but suddenly they're listening. So this is what I want to tell people, is that we're not going to have suddenly a situation where things get different because you're doing something different or you're supposed to do something different. I'm telling you that the objections to what you're doing are now going to start to go away, or at least lessen to the degree that you can get things done you never got done before. There are people listening to this who thought they wanted to build a healing center or they wanted to do some other things, or they wanted to write a book or something. They've never been able to get the first base with it because of all manner of things. And Kryon said this is a real good time to start rekindling those good ideas, because you're not going to have the old consciousness objections near to the amount you were. So I tell light workers, I tell old souls, just now do what you've always been doing, but expect better results.
That's really, really helpful and hopeful, because that was going to be my next question. And since that's a great segue, which and I want to just give you a little commercial break here for yourself. You can go to Kryon.com, Kryon.com, and get all of Lee's channelings free. You can just download them, and you don't have to register or anything like that, so it's very refreshing in that regard. And some of the stuff we're talking about, I just listened to two of the channelings today. The latest ones. One is from Boulder, and the other is from Phoenix. And he talks a lot about what we're discussing right now in both of those channels, so in great detail. So, and those are actually Kryon channeling. So both I highly recommend. But in regards to light workers and old souls, and if there's some sort of distinction that you think between the two, let us know. But I know that so many of us are very, very sensitive and really paying attention. And so I wanted to know, I know our bodies shift, our energy shifts with these kind of changes, our light work, with air quotes around it. has shifted for many people. A lot of people are going through a major awakening where they haven't been able to, in the past, get past their own personal inertia. Now it's like they're bursting open. We're seeing a lot of relationships sort of dropping away.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that light workers specifically are going through and what they can do to kind of ease this transition?
An old soul is I can't define old soul by numbers or anything else. It's to say you've been here a long, long time and you know it. You know it. You wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't know it. And this is just intuitive. You know how things work. People are not able to just pull the wool over your eyes. And when you meet new people on the planet, newbies who've just arrived, you say A, they say B. They just have no idea how it works at all. And you walk away and roll your eyes and go, "Good luck to them. God bless them." But how are they going to exist? You know you're an old soul. You've been there. You've done that, and you're walking the streets. It's like New Yorkers. They're not naive. They know how things work. They've ridden the subways. They can walk around. And I love New Yorkers because they're savvy. But you take somebody from a city I won't mention who has like one stoplight and stick them in Manhattan, and that's a newbie. You'll get you have no idea. Right. And so an old soul is one who's been here a long time, and intuitively they're awakening to a process, and the process is they're answering, is there more I should know? Is there something I should be doing? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? And many of us are uncomfortable because now we are starting to shed the old stuff and start to get into a place where we can make differences, and that we call a light worker. Now, you wanted to know, your question was, I forget, was about
was about what we can do as light workers to ease the transition and all that kind of stuff. Different changes, that shifts that we can see in our body and our energy, careers, relationships, that kind of thing.
Let's talk about what's happening first. Relationships, I'm seeing them. I'm seeing things that probably should have happened all along now happening. If that makes any sense. I mean, we postpone inevitable things. In other words, light workers are starting to take their power and saying, "Look, I know now that this is not good for you or for me," speaking to a partner, and they're starting to say things they did not say before. You're starting to see these kinds of things. We're starting to see a little more sickness, and this is not people dying, especially. We're seeing that too. Unfortunately, we are starting to see a recalibration of your immune system, and that is something that would often take a toll of a couple of months in your energy. And there's a lot of people listening right now. It's not just winter, guys. There's something else going on. And it's not going to kill you. What it's going to do is help realign you, and you're going to come back more strengthened than ever. Kryon even talks about this. He says you can't have spirituality happening over here in some major way and not involve the physical body. The body is going to come along with you. You're going to have to live longer. And so you have given permission to walk through this time, and now there are other things that may occur because of it. Work-related issues. People who are starting to see a different dynamic at work suddenly. And again, some people said, well, it's just because we're having a funny winter or whatever. No, it isn't. You're seeing what you're seeing. And people are starting to have to make decisions. They're crossing a line of integrity, or they decided not to anymore, or they decided to say something finally because some stuff is really wrong, or it's not working, or it never will work. And we see this a lot in business. And so here, I know this show is about business as well, the enlightened business. But it's about transparency and integrity and unification. And you start putting these things together in ways that we always knew they could be, and the results are starting to show. And that is how you measure what you're doing, isn't it? We always measure what we're doing by getting results. If suddenly you do things and you get more energy, what does that tell you? So you're doing the right thing. Suddenly you change your life, your attitudes, what you will and will not do, the things that you're looking for. Put the spring in your step, things start happening to you, you feel better about yourself. And that is, that's how we measure things. As far as what people can do, right now, this is an interim step. I don't want you to go out and do anything. He said, take care of yourself. This is what Kryon has said, too. We got why don't we take 2013 off? And what is that? By taking care of yourself, realigning yourself, making sure you've got the energy you think you have, making sure everything is right in your house. You know what that means. And just having a situation where you are patient and realize that some of the things are going to have to play out here in this year because of the transition, because you won. And it's not necessarily a great year to launch into a whole bunch of very aggressive light things. That's going to come later. Right now, Kryon, he actually has said in several channels, he said, this is a time for patience.
Mm-hmm. Everybody hates that word.
Oh, yeah. I hate
the energy of the whole audience.
You know, if I was after popularity, I probably wouldn't be saying these things. But I've been around long enough now that I just say them anyway.
Right.
And
I
so,
do the same thing.
And I think the old soul and the wise soul really would agree, would understand what I'm talking about right now. Is just take a deep breath. You just won the marathon, and it was a long one. And so it's a good time to breathe and have a nice drink of water and things, and kind of like realign before you now step into what are you going to do different. And as I said before, it may not be what you do different as much as what you expect different from who you are and what you do. And believe me, you're going to see some things you did not expect. You're going to see family members, people at work or whatever, eventually start to see your light. They may not agree with what you're doing. And when you say you're New Age or you believe in this and that, but they will like you more. And they will see that there is balance in you. The kind of balance, by the way, that Gaia is supporting, the new energy is supporting, and that old human nature is not supporting. So it's a realignment in the way people think.
Well, with that being said, I wanted to ask you, we have to, before we end today's show, we have to talk about the economy and we have to talk about the weather. But I want to talk to you about something else before we get to those two things, because if I don't ask those two things, I will get emails from all over the world. But the question is about multidimensionality, because we talk about doppelgangers and being able to interact with multidimensional versions of ourselves, and that the construct of linear time doesn't exist, that we're really working simultaneously. Do we have more access to those aspects of ourselves now than we did in the past?
The barriers are being dropped, and we will have more understanding of them as we go. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and find that there are 4 of us available out there. It's just not going to work that way. What we have instead is call it an intuitive sense, which is starting to clear, because the old energy is starting to move away, that allows us to see inside ourselves better. We, as light workers, we spend our whole lives wishing we could know more about truth,
right?
The higher self. Where is it? What is it? Is it really there? And these are kinds of things that now you're going to start seeing. Yes, it is. I feel it. I'm getting intuitive flashes from it. I'm starting to understand intuitive flashes are not flashes of nonsense. They are messages.
Right.
They're going to linger longer. You're going to have science, and Kryon has talked about all of this. Eventually, they're on the cusp. We had to get through this for the invention to be given to us. The Kryon said will be the most important invention has ever been given to humanity, and it's around the corner, whether that means 20 years or 10 or what. And he says the ability to see and measure multidimensional energies. And when you can, he says everything opens up. And it'll be the marker between an old and like a barbarian society, and it's that kind of an invention.
Yeah.
And it's going to amaze us all. And because everything opens up, we'll see multidimensional energies around ourselves, around plants, animals, Earth. We'll hear things in the cosmos we've never heard before. We'll be in touch with those who perhaps also see multidimensional energy. So the whole idea of a quantum reality is what we teach. We are headed for that. Yeah. But for now, it's inward. We are starting to awaken to better senses of what's inside of us. If I could just tell you, one of the big ones to me, and we never even think about this, we never even talk about this, is that there's really, Kryon says we got three major bodies going on. We've got our corporeal self, that's the one you look at in the mirror, and that's the one you're very aware of. You've got your conscious self, which is what we're talking about now is we have a consciousness. We have an intelligent self. In addition, and that's the part of the body that seems to know stuff we don't, which makes no sense at all. If you think about it, this is the body you've got to get in touch with kinesiology. Mm-hmm. So you want to know what you're allergic to, so you do muscle testing. And, if I landed from another planet and came down and asked you, all about how your life is, and you told me that you've got to go and do muscle testing to find out what you're allergic to, I'd roll my eyes and go, what kind of a body have you got anyway? Doesn't it tell you that? You can have cancer raging in you, and you could just, you just be going to a movie saying, I'm having a nice day. And when, red lights are going off because the white corpuscles are racing to, and you don't even know it until you feel funny and go to the doctor and he does a test and goes, yeah, that's what you got. That doesn't make sense. So there is in my opinion, a missing bridge. And that missing bridge is this 3D thing we're into that is now starting to clear. A multidimensional human being, especially an old soul who starts to learn about these things through experience and knows what they feel like, is going to know what's wrong with them. They're going to know what they're allergic to. They're going to know how to eat better. They're going to pull things from their akash, and it's going to be intuitive. And there's not going to be, people are going to say, well, how did you do that? And you're not going to be able to answer it because it's intuitive. And more people are going to start to live longer, feel better, start to understand these things. This is the multidimensionality we're talking about. So it's not about walking around in 3 or 4 worlds at the same time. It's not about real spooky stuff. It's not about physics that we'll never understand.
Greater access to our greater self.
To what has always been there. We walk in a multidimensional reality, and we're only aware of 4D of that. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to wake up to more of them.
Wonderful. So let's get back to the stuff that everybody wants to know about. You know what? I have one more esoteric question I need to ask, which is about galactic involvement. As far as I've been hearing a lot also about extraterrestrial energy and access to other civilizations and working with other civilizations in the dream state. Does Kryon have any kind of take on that? Is that actually happening?
Yeah, it's always been happening, but it's always been under the hood to such a degree that it's individual. People have it. They write books about it, but you read it and you can't really relate to it. Now, here I am talking to you about it when we were in Hawaii doing the Lemurian Choir. What we did was send a signal to the Pleiadians that we made it. And it was a multidimensional signal. This is supposed to let them not only know we're here, but we have crossed a marker where we're going to become multidimensional, and that is when we will have contact from them. Now, there's all manner of other civilizations. The galaxy is crawling with them. Kryon has said the ones that you will probably be most interested in are the ones that have planets like yours who have gone through the shift that you've gone through right now. And these are the ones who will have the equipment, that is to say the multidimensional instruments and all the quantum realities in order to talk to you. So, yes, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen yet. It's not going to happen quickly because we have got to settle. It's like we won a war. And we've just and everything has been destroyed around us. Now we got to rebuild. Now we got to make new streets. That is to say, the streets represent cleaner ways of thinking, reinventing some of the things we want for our society, making laws that make sense. All of these things that we are looking at, and it's all related to this. And so I can't sit here and to say that all of that stuff is silly because it isn't. It's going to happen. Anybody who looks out into the stars, and now there's an astronomer I've met. There is not one astronomer I've met in the last decade who would tell me there's no life in outer space. They all know it. It's just a matter of where is it and how can we come to them. And so the answer is with quantum energy, and it's coming.
Do you think that some people like Richard Branson, who's created like ways to go out into space as a recreational activity, are onto something with that? Do you think that's like kind of a precursor, kind of like Zuckerberg did with
I think
Facebook?
Branson, every time I look at him, I think Branson's a space creature.
I think so too.
I think he knows it. And sure, he's awakened to getting us interested. He's got the money for it, and he's really done something. We'll look back on him and understand him a lot better as we go on. Going into space just gets people interested. We're still doing it in 3D, guys. It's just like it's like me telling you we're going to cross the ocean, get into the boat. And you go, wait a minute, we have airplanes, and you go, well, not yet. I would like to get you more interested in the ocean, so let's get in the boat. So it's archaic at the moment.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
It starts the conversation. All right, so let's talk about the other two big ones, the big kahunas, which is I'll do the economy last because I know. The weather. Hurricanes. Did Kryon say anything about Hurricane Sandy? Sandy Hook Bay, which is, I live in New Jersey, and Sandy Hook Bay was completely destroyed, and that was where, like, the weather station is for New Jersey. And then Sandy Hook, the school, all these Sandys in a row. Anything about the weather and these big changes? I know we had one question from someone online asking, saying, is it time for her to move away from the eastern seaboard? Are the waters rising? Are these, is this something to be concerned about?
If you follow the Kryon work and you know the last 3 years, Kryon has talked about the fact that global warming is only a temporary warming and it's going to turn into a cooling. We now have website after website. We have scientist after scientist who's now agreeing. I travel the world, different countries. Most of the scientists in the other countries disagree with us as far as we seem to have our weather change is somehow right or wrong wrapped around a political agenda. And we're having trouble with it. And what everybody is almost saying when you leave the country is, look, we're in a weather cycle, and the cycle is, you can see it in the ice cores, you can see it in the rings of the tree, and that is about every 1,600 years, or sometimes as little as 700. We go through a water cycle, and the water cycle is a partial melting of the poles, which then cools the ocean, by the way, because the water gets colder. And a cooling ocean creates large storms. And so that's why we have the tornadoes we saw 2 years ago in the Midwest, and that is the reason that you had your problems there in New York. The storms are bigger, and you can't help that. It's part of the weather cycle. And to answer the question, only you know whether you ought to move from the eastern seaboard. That's not the water's not going to come up. It's just the storms will be bigger, and you don't know where they're going to be. So just be prepared. Kryon has told us in channel after channel, you need to strengthen the grid, or better yet, get rid of it, and you should go to some inventions that he talked about where you won't need it anymore. And strengthen. You can also need some fresh water down the line. And he just said this is he said a meteorologist will tell you this. This is not prophecy as much as it is common sense. So if you are in a danger zone. Now, this would be flooding, anything else. I would move away based upon what might happen, or just move to another neighborhood that's higher. A lot of my Floridian friends, they're back on the ocean. They're just on stilts now, and that makes sense. I mean, they're looking at more water than they've had before, in places they don't want. So this is going to happen again. Now, whether it's going to happen, in Manhattan and New Jersey like it did before, unknown. But you can see that things are not as usual.
Right.
And you just got a really good example of that. So you did not have your 100-year storm. You may have had
your 300-year storm.
Well, you might have had your 5-year storm, which means it's coming back. But the storms are bigger for a while. It may very well strike again, the same kind of thing. So the municipalities should know about that. The people who live in low land should. I remember when we had Katrina, and one of the things that Kryon said about Luciano was the don't send them money, send them dirt. In other words, it was you got to get higher. You know? So there's ways of building neighborhoods on berms that will let the water then go down the street because it's really, really low and the berms are high. There's a lot of intelligent stuff that we're not doing.
So you just killed like the real estate market in some very key.
Well, or they could band together and do something that was smart in order to protect themselves better. But that is a very realistic answer based upon what Kryon has said.
Right.
Storms, there's going to be more of them, and they'll be bigger.
Yeah. Well, speaking of storms, then the economic situation going on, and I wanted to talk to you about the U.S. versus global. How I know we've had all these political issues and leadership changing, all over the world. Is there any insight on what's going on the landscape worldwide versus the U.S.?
We're 200 years old. We're no longer the young whippersnapper nation who's everything is everybody looks to us. When I know this is a long answer, but when I go overseas and we do seminars and all that kind of things that used to be based in the U.S. dollar are now based in the euro. When I go to the southern hemisphere and even South America, where some unstable currencies are there, they base it in the euro. The euro won, and I don't know if any of Americans, I don't even want to hear that, but it's still worth 30% more than the American dollar. It has been even through all their troubles. It tells you that something is there we should look at, and there is a feeling of unification over there. They have tried to take unequal economies and throw them together, and it's awful for some of the countries, but they're doing the impossible. And the economists would have just said that these things that they have done are just untenable, and yet they've worked. And the proof is the fact that the euro is still very valuable. And if they were all coming apart at the seams, it wouldn't be. And so you have to look at this. All this to say is that we are now looking at a situation where we just want to. Most Americans would just have it the way it was, and it's not going to be that way. Right. We're going to have to reinvent our banking system. Kryon says we're doing that. We're reinventing whether we want a health system that works or not, of how to accomplish it. Now, all that we do there is called politics. Kryon doesn't get into it. But he says, look at the altruistic motive, is that we're trying to put together something that helps people. And the idea then is to do it so that we don't bankrupt ourselves. And so it's going to take smart people in order to accomplish that. We're also going to have to get jobs back. This is something that is going to be up to the bankers. And the bankers are going to have to swallow hard and decide what they're going to do, because they've been kind of dormant for about 5 years now, because they can't do what they normally do because it doesn't work anymore. That's an old energy. The real estate thing was an old energy, all about greed. To some degree, banking is about greed. So when they start changing the rules, things are going to start to come back. But this is a recalibration, and it hurts. And it isn't easy. And we've got who we elect as leaders down the line. Kryon says politics is our karma. So we either slow it down or we speed it up. But we are seeing a recalibration of the way we work with money. And we ought to look a little outside our own borders to see if we're missing something along the line.
Yeah, so taking examples from what's going on globally is the best advice for the U.S. at this point?
To some degree, it is. We have been standard setters as long as I've been alive. I travel the world. You would have to go into some of these other countries to see. I never expected it as an American. I go into certain European countries, Western European, and they actually have it better than we do. They have better stocks than we do. You go into malls and things that you can't believe what you're seeing. It makes our stuff just look dowdy. And something is going on. I mean, they've got some things figured out. I happen to disagree with some of the things that my degree is in. You asked me a funny question. I have a degree in economics, so this is before I got to be an engineer. That's what I did. And they still don't have what I would call free banking systems like we do. So it's not about. They haven't figured out the banking thing. They're waiting for us to do that, and we will. I honestly believe we will, because this is what American can do. It can move faster than almost any other country, because we move that way. We have, what do I call it, the Founding Fathers put in place a way we can do this better than almost any other country. So that's why we have often been the forerunners. But there's some other things to learn as far as unifying that I think we're afraid of.
Yes. Yes, no, I agree, and I think there's a pride issue too, where we still just like there's a part of us that just wants to feel that we're the best just by default, and we're kind of getting run over in many ways.
Well, I did. Can I just tell you that? I mean, I'm just a regular old American guy, and I did. When I first started traveling, I just expected that everybody would take a look, and I mean, I'd see a lot less than what we had, and that's not what I see. So there's a lot to look at here and to analyze.
Well, 2 more questions, and then we're actually running out of time. My goodness, that went fast.
No.
I know, right? The one of the questions is about gun laws and this whole huge debate. And does Kryon have anything to say about any of that?
No,
or
he won't. Kryon says that these are the things that a society has to figure out for themselves, and the reason why you can't make some kind of generic statement, and the reason why the world can't look at us and solve our problems or we solve theirs is because every society has its own foundation of consciousness. We're a nation of pioneers, and we all carry guns forever. So it's really hard at this point in time, to change that, and that's what we're running into. And so where it settles, we want to make sure there's integrity here, and we do something that makes sense, and not just pass laws that look like they might but don't.
Right.
Yeah, and so it has to be. This is one of those things where, and Kryon has said, you don't know what you don't know, and new ideas may very well come forward if you listen to them and allow them that do make sense, that are radically different and have never been presented before. So in the current situation, for instance, they're talking all around the issue, and it's been spurred by the basically Sandy Hook and some of the other things. But I grew up with these same kinds of things going on, and we didn't do much then either. So let's see if there's something that can be done that makes sense to our society and what we expect from ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a really good, fair answer, and I think what we can end on is just if there's anything. I think the question that really came up for me is what do we have to look forward to? I always like to end, because we don't want to go through these, especially these types of conversations, and some people now are like, oh my gosh, honey, we have to move. Kryon just said we have to move. We're going to get away from the water. It's rising. Oh my God, it's not going to stop. Kryon said it's going to get worse. So while they're running to the realtor, I'd like to kind of bring it home. And for that, I hope nobody runs to the realtor because Kryon said that. I just default to what the meteorologist has said. Storms are getting bigger because of the situation of the water cycle. So that's not a Kryon thing. That was just a report. So do whatever you want to on that one. But continue. No, so what do we, as light workers, as old souls, as society, everything that's really taken place, and I think I know for the first month of the year I was just flat out exhausted, especially doing the kind of work I do. Kind of holding the fort as we all just chugged along to the solstice and everything. And I told my guys, look, I'm exhausted. I need rest. But based on, now that we're into February and, we got to kind of keep moving, what do we have to look forward to?
I want everybody to understand that changes of energy, even subtle ones, are exhausting to those who are receiving it. And that would be light workers and old souls. You're worked on during the night. You are being told by all manner of entities on the universe and anywhere that you are making differences. Stand by for shift and change. You and your children and your children's children will point to this someday. And so that is exhausting.
Yeah.
And so don't think that there's something wrong with you if you're more tired than usual. Even I am, and I pride myself in a lot of energy, and I always have had a lot of energy. I'm finding myself taking a nap during the day. That's the first. I'm seeing little changes in my activity as well. So the first thing, again, I will say is this is slow, and wait until you're not feeling tired in order to decide to do something that is going to require a lot of energy. So you see, I'm telling you to take it easy. I'm telling you to watch these things, to be patient with these things. As we go along slowly, you're going to start to feel different. That will be the first thing. You're going to feel a clearing going on. The things are not as bad as you thought they were. Slowly, things are going to get solved. You'll see them. And then your participation in life is going to be more appreciated. Everyone has a different path, whether that's at work, whether that's your family, whether that's your mate, whether that's just people around you. They're going to start seeing a little more wisdom in you. They're going to start paying a little more attention when you start giving them answers. So be prepared to give good answers. And don't tell them to read a Kryon book. That's not what I'm talking about. Honestly, that's just not about... No, I'm talking about a different way of thinking. A way that is instead of building a wall around yourself and protecting you like the old city-states did, instead you're going to unite. You're going to want to bring in other ideas and thoughts and people, and they can see that you're honest and you won't hurt them. And, it changes the very social fabric. Ask the young people about social networking. That's what they have done. When you go onto Facebook, you see the big thumb. It says, I like this. Do you realize that whoever designed this, for the first time in human history, they said there was no thumbs down that says, I don't like this. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
This is a different way of thinking. In other words, what they're saying is if you don't like it, go to another page.
Right.
We don't want you here. If you don't, there's no reason for you to be here. Instead of starting some kind of diatribe about what's wrong with everything, they are concentrating on what's right with it. This is a consciousness shift.
Yeah, beautiful. I wanted to encourage light workers, and I wanted to see if you would just comment on this as our last thing about their right livelihood and the work that they've, in the past. I saw two things happening. I know it happened with me. We would work really hard on projects, books, products, healing modalities, various things. Everybody was getting certified for this, that, and the other thing, and it seemed like it was before its time. It would kind of hit a wall, or just hit, like a point of unresponsiveness. And now it feels like the landscape for everything that we've sort of collected in our Santa's workshop, waiting for Christmas Eve, is needed. Is it an easier time now to, when you're saying go slow, that doesn't mean go slow with what you're passionate about and what your ability to be successful in this work, does it?
No, it just means don't decide now that the energy is new that you're going to build something that you never thought you would be building before. But instead, you might trot out what you tried before and try it again. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just don't be too aggressive at the moment. Let the dust settle. Because it's going to be better later. And so why spin your wheels? And as far as, by the way, some of these things that, these processes and the things that you've talked about, not only were you doing it in an older energy where there wasn't the receptivity, but some of those things are going to improve so much that you're going to actually put them on the shelf and redesign them.
Right.
Because now new thought is one of the things that Kryon says we're not told in school that human consciousness and evolution creates a situation where you turn a corner and suddenly you get revelations about things that you never had before. But then he also reminds us how inventions on the planet happen. There's one particular channel where he really makes fun of us in a nice way. Says, what took you so long to fly? I mean, the Chinese were doing kites and all like that. It's only 100 years or so old, and you've been here for tens of thousands of years. And and two bicycle makers had to do it. And it was like, the intellectual would say the human brain is the human brain and can think of whatever anybody can think of, and it's not the way it is. We are actually given insights all at once as a planet through these processes, we've been told. I mean, the flight, we only beat the French by a week. Electricity, radio, almost everything happened all at once on the planet, although like some big hand came down and shook itself and said, here's the ideas, everybody. And that's what's going to happen next. And we're going to start having these kind of revelations, things you never thought about, in the way of energy work as well as physical inventions in physics that are really going to start.
Great. And you think the dust settling is, are we talking decades, years, months?
I wish I had an answer as we proceed. Kryon says this is in our purview, meaning that we will control the speed. So there is no clock here that runs through a predestined mechanics. Yeah. It's going to happen as we push it. So the clearer we are, the better we think about things, and the more we affect others around us with light through patience, integrity, honesty, these kinds of things. This collectively will start a consciousness shift that is faster than perhaps it would have been otherwise.
Perfect. Well, why don't we tell everyone again where they can get access to your stuff, what new projects, what new, you're coming to New Jersey. Yes. In June.
Yes, in June. Yeah. I make sure I'm not in the weather months. I'm just in the hot months.
That's right. So tell everybody about what's going on so they can know how to get in touch with you and
get access easy. To just come to Kryon.com. I redesigned my site. I redesigned my site to be what I think all sites will be someday, and that is the computer industry is going to, thanks Steve Jobs, is going to touch and swipe. No matter what kind of computer, mobile device you have, or whatever, eventually your screen will be a touch screen, touch and swipe. So it makes sense that when you go to a website, you ought to be able to find out where you're going within 20 seconds. And if you don't, then the site should be redesigned. So take a look. You'll see that it's very straightforward. Go to my site and check it out. There's a lot of things you can do, but among them, my free audios, hundreds of hours of free audios, as you mentioned, and also you can see where I'm going to be. If I'm going to be near you, I'd sure like to see you. That's
great. And I can just say I've been coming to your events for decades, so I highly recommend them for those of you who have not treated yourself. I highly suggest you can listen to all the audios you want and do all the free stuff you want, but I will say there is nothing like being with Lee and Kryon in person, and with the energy of that group and all of the meditations and all the things that go on in a Kryon event. It's just amazing, and it's an incredible experience. And you actually literally walk out completely transformed. I have time after time. Consistently.
That's very kind of you. There are a lot to do. You're right.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. So I'd just like to say thank you. And I'm so excited. We had our annual energetic State of the Union address. I think that's just great. We have to keep this as a tradition, Lee.
Okay.
This is really good.
We'll do another one tomorrow. Oh, sorry. I went to wait a year. Oh, okay.
Well, definitely soon. We won't wait a whole year. It's because everything's going. Since there's no time anyway, we can do it sooner than later. All right. So, everybody, I'd just like to say thank you for listening. We are at the end of another Aha Moments radio show. We will be back next Tuesday, same place, same time. And as I always say at the end of every show, you truly can have exactly what you want. You absolutely deserve it too. And in this energy, anything is possible. Have a great night, everybody. See you next week.
You've been listening to the Aha Moments radio show with your host, Mari. Be sure to visit her blog and website at www.ahamomentsinc.com. That's AHA, moments with an S, inc.com. Also join Mari on Facebook at www.facebook.com/ahamomentsinc and Twitter at twitter.com/ahamoments. We can't wait to see you there.